I've seen the trend now. I've seen the trend for years.
What's the trend?
The trend is always making excuses. Doc, we get it. Taking over a team in the middle of the season is hard. It's hard. We get it. But it's always an excuse. It's always throwing your team under the bus.
Ultimately, he's going to be a head coaching candidate. They've mentioned him in Charlotte. They've mentioned him with the Los Angeles Lakers.
I really hope he gets the job, because then he'll understand some of the things that he has a problem with me and other coaches that you hear on this podcast. He'll realize not as easy as you think.
What's your post-game message after a tough loss like that, and kind of on top of some other recent tough losses?
I can't physically get us organized. I can't physically be into the basketball. I can't physically talk and call out reds and physically call out coverages. And
we're now tuned in to the Dark Times Channel.
Brandon.
What? Not like his high hopes. You got JJ Reddick as your coach.
What? I
mean, what's the high hopes? Who thought was gonna happen? They hired a podcast.
He really looking 40 now. He look like me.
They hired a guy because he was doing X's and O's.
15-year NBA career.
I don't care.
You do not care. Brandon, I thought you was on the Lakers side.
They should have hired Steph Cassell.
And I'm not going to go as far as to say that JJ Reddick didn't deserve the head coaching job with the Los Angeles Lakers, because you deserve what you get.
Head and shoulders above the freshman. Reddick with a three and turns and smiles at the side. Travis Garrison got a piece of it. Reddick,
Can't leave him open, Mike. It's automatic. It's like a layup, as I said.
No matter how you get it, maybe it's based on how you look, how you talk.
Yo, JJ, my main man, what's happening?
You deserve what you get. And I'm not going to fault somebody for taking a position that was offered to him. But I will say this, when JJ Reddick was on television and he was an analyst, he had a lot to say about certain head coaches, and in particular, Doc Rivers.
I've seen the trend now. I've seen the trend for years.
What's the trend?
The trend is always making excuses. Doc, we get it. Taking over a team in the middle of the season is hard. It's hard. We get it. But it's always an excuse. It's always throwing your team under the bus. There's never accountability with that guy. There's never accountability.
Well, let me say a couple of things.
For someone who's not accountable, he seems to always be held responsible, considering he's the guy that's always fired when things don't go right. He got fired in the bubble for a 3-1 lead versus the Denver Nuggets, which in half his team didn't want to be there. They had players saying that their mind wasn't there. They had guys leave. That happened. Then he gets fired for losing to a team that was favored over him, which was the Celtics last year. It seems like he's always responsible. Your best years in the NBA were when you played for him in the Clippers. Let's not forget that. I don't know if there's like frustration there or there's tension there between you. I know a lot of times we had to sit you towards the end of the game due to defensive reasons, but you had your best years as a starter there, especially our whole system was drafted around you because you're a shooter. You're not a guy who can put the ball on the floor. You were a strictly shoot guy. You're not like Klay Thompson or Steph who can put the ball on the floor. You were a guy who could catch and shoot, and you did it at a high level. Hell of a career, by the way. Big fan. But your best years were under him. It's just very ironic and kind of weird that you have this energy towards him in terms of him never, ever being accountable, considering he's always been responsible.
And so I agree with Austin Rivers 100% on this one. It was very ironic and weird, to say the least, to have a former player in JJ Reddick call out his former head coach and Doc Rivers like that. It seemed a little bit over the top and a little bit unnecessary.
Pretty soon you be feeling all unnecessary.
Because like Austin Rivers laid out, Doc Rivers has been held accountable. When you get fired as a head coach, that's what accountability looks like.
News into First Take this morning. The Philadelphia 76ers have fired their head coach, Doc Rivers. Adrian Wojnarowski reporting. I'll start with you here, JJ. Your reaction to this news? Obviously, you played there.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised. I think we've talked about this all season long, that there are consequences to a lack of results.
But his former head coach, Doc Rivers, when asked by Stephen A. Smith about JJ Reddick getting a head coaching position with the Los Angeles Lakers or another NBA team, he took the high road.
Ultimately, he's going to be a head coaching candidate. They've mentioned him in Charlotte. They've mentioned him with the Los Angeles Lakers. That's to just mention two teams. How do you feel about that, knowing what you know about him as a basketball mind and now a basketball commentator?
Well, he has a great mind. He really does. And listen, that's how I got it. I went into commentating, got a head coaching job. So I personally, I really hope he gets the job, because then he'll understand some of the things that he has a problem with me and other coaches that you hear on this podcast. he'll realize not as easy as you think.
And that's kind of how JJ Reddick has made a name for himself after basketball, by giving some of his hot takes and some of his opinions, and not just coming after Doc Rivers, but he's come after a lot of people, a lot of former legendary NBA players.
Did Bob Cousy ever shoot over 40% from the field in his
we
career?
understand that.
Did
You're
he
right.
overshoot? Did he ever shoot over 40%?
Probably 39, 40%. Different kind
Not
of game.
once.
It's
Not
fair.
once.
That's fair. You also had 29 assists in an NBA game.
Oh, well, he was being guarded by plumbers and firemen.
JJ Reddick, a current player who just recently retired, said that Bob Cousy played against firemen and plumbers. And
tell me what his career looked like. What did he do that determined games? He averaged what? He averaged 12 points a game in the league. Somewhere along the way, numbers count. At that point in time, the players aren't what they used to be. JJ certainly wasn't going to guard the elite players.
All I'm going to say is JJ Reddick, this kid here, who's a journeyman, played for 6 different teams. All his accolades came in college, played 15 years in the NBA, was being shifted around from team to team because all he could do was shoot. And he wasn't that great of a shooter. He was a poor man, Danny Ainge. In today's NBA, I don't know what game he's looking at. You can't touch the guy. Anytime you touch anybody, a three-point shooter, come close to them when they're landing, it's a foul. JJ Reddick needs to be quiet and stop trying to compare.
And now JJ Reddick finds himself in a situation in which a lot of head coaches find themselves in. They're on a losing streak or they reach a rough patch, and the media wants answers. And I want you guys to pay attention on how JJ Reddick is very measured with his response and very calculated with his response, because he knows he's put himself in a situation where he has to hold himself accountable. And it's going to be hard for him to hold others accountable within the media based on how he's critiqued Doc Rivers for trying to hold people accountable.
What's your post-game message after a tough loss like that and kind of on top of some other recent tough losses?
To you or to the team? There has to be some ownership. I can't physically get us organized. I can't physically be into the basketball. I can't physically talk and call out reds and physically call out coverages, and it's, I'm not, and by the way, I'm not blaming players. That's not, I own this. But gonna need some ownership on the court as well.
And so JJ Reddick is finding out that it's not that sweet being an NBA coach. A lot of things that happen between those lines don't come down to X's and O's. There's a lot of nuance in the game of basketball.
Short, gets his own rebound and gets fouled on what the Pistons think is a jump ball by Wallace. And then Wallace and Medvedenko start to jostle.
And I hate to say this, Al, but if I'm the Lakers, I don't separate. I love what Larry Brown just did. Rasheed Wallace got into him with Medvedenko, and Larry Brown said, okay, if you're going to get tough with him, then we're going to give you the ball down on the post. And Rasheed Wallace responded by scoring.
Some things you can see, some things you can't see from watching at home.
So coaching has to put you in the right position to score the basketball and to defend the basketball.
Bro, he's a point guard. Coach ain't got to put him in position. He has the ball all the time, and he's making the right decision. He's making the plays. Paolo's not there, so he's stepping up as the main guy.
You just don't believe in coaching, and you're just wrong.
Yeah, I'm not wrong.
Coaches
I got four.
Coaches are important. You didn't know. Yeah, Phil Jackson, bro. And you had the two greatest coaches that ever coached basketball.
Phil Jackson coach?
Phil
Jackson sat his ass down with his legs
I
crossed.
played you before Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson
and we
sat
got
his ass down with his legs crossed and said, figure it out.
Listen,
that's why I know what the hell I'm talking about. You don't.
And Shaquille O'Neal inadvertently just let the cat out of the bag and told on Phil Jackson, because Phil Jackson is regarded as one of the best coaches of all time in basketball, if not the best coach in basketball, because of the championships. But to me, in my book, that doesn't quantify you as being the best head coach. Because like Shaquille O'Neal said, when you got a Shaquille O'Neal or you got a Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan and a Scottie Pippen, you can call a timeout and tell your guys to figure it out. When you have players of that caliber, you can do that. But when you don't, it takes a little bit more than that. So to me, the best head coach to ever do it in the NBA was Larry Brown. Larry Brown maximized every single roster that he had. And those Detroit Pistons back in 2004 had no business beating the Los Angeles Lakers, a prime Kobe Bryant, a prime Shaquille O'Neal. Same thing with the Philadelphia 76ers, led by Allen Iverson. He had no business taking Allen Iverson to the finals, but he did. And Larry Brown wasn't one of those coaches that players always got along with. You're talking about a very demanding head coach, a coach that was gonna demand excellence from you, regardless of how much money you were making, regardless of your stature within the organization. It didn't matter. It was about the game of basketball. And he wanted to make sure that no player of his was going to cheat the game of basketball. And him and Allen Iverson used to get into it all the time.
And Saturday night for the final 20 minutes of an eventual loss to Detroit, he suggested he might want to trade.
I've never been sat down a whole half in my career if nothing was wrong with me. And y'all know me, you take me out for 2 minutes and I get upset about it not because I'm selfish or anything like that. I'm just competitive and I want to be out there on the floor helping my team.
And it wasn't until later on in Allen Iverson's career that he realized that Larry Brown was the best thing for him.
Once I started to listen to Larry Brown and take constructive criticism, I learned that how much of a great coach that he is. Once I started to listen to him the way I was supposed to and was coached by him, that's when I became an MVP. That's when I became an all-star. That's when I made first team All-NBA. Once I got the message from him.
You need a coach that's going to hold you accountable. You need somebody that's going to tell you some uncomfortable truths about yourself or about your game.
How you like that, Toy Cop? Snap your wrist more. Excuse me?
That's the only way you're going to get better. That's the only way you're going to grow. And I'm not sure that JJ Reddick is the coach to do it, especially seeing how everybody knows that LeBron is the one that brought him in. And how can you hold somebody accountable when they're the one that got you the job? A job that you may not necessarily have the qualifications for, but like I said earlier, I'm not mad at it. You get what you get. You get what you deserve in this life, no matter how you get it. But in that same breath, it's going to be hard to hold that individual accountable. And so I don't see this situation with the Lakers getting any better anytime soon. But that's all I had on this one. Make sure you guys go ahead and drop a like. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you go ahead and do that as well. And as usual, peace, chaos.